Assalamualaikum and welcome to another episode of the Business Hour here on Unity FM. I'm your host Umar Rashid, and before I introduce our guest today, just a reminder that you can listen to previous shows on the Unity FM website. You can also visit my YouTube channel at Umar Rashid HR. You can also connect with me on my social media platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And again, the handles for all of that is at Umar Rashid HR. In case you're tuning in for the first time, the Business Hour is where we talk all things business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're thinking about starting out in business, whether you're even an experienced business owner and in business and you're wanting to know more, wanting to get tips, expertise, advice from our guests, then this is the show definitely for you. Now, today's guest is someone who's a locum GP who travels up and down the country providing GP services. He also works in management for the NHS. He is also part of the National Burial Council. He also has a publishing company and he publishes books on Islam and history of the Arabic language. He's the president of Support Muslim Business Forum, also known as SMBF. He's also a project manager for Save the Mother's Trust Welfare, a hospital, and also he's part of the SMT Welfare Hospital. He's a charity hospital which in North Pakistan focuses on maternity and children's care. He is brother Dr Usman Khalid. Assalamualaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam, Umar. Thank you for having me.
No problem. No, thank you for coming on. Mashallah, going through your intro bio, as you can see, I've got my words mixed up because there's so much stuff going on. I have to ask, Alhamdulillah, I have to ask, how do you find the time?
I get asked that often, and I think I give a different answer every time, and I think the reason is because I don't really know. Is that the answer you were looking for? I don't know. I think what it is first of all, most of the things you mentioned, it's not just me. There's a group of people working really hard on lots of different projects, and I think having business experience, that any organization, charity, business, whatever you're doing goes through stages, like what you would call a startup or the founding stage, and then stages of development, expansion and growth. And I think when you've been through that journey once, it's easier to kind of understand the process and replicate it, and understand when to bring people on, delegate, build organizations. It's a skill and a pattern that you go through, and I think it becomes easier as you do it. So and then there's other people working on all these projects, and I just take all the credit, really. Yeah.
Okay. Why not?
There's some amazing people doing amazing work, and I'm just a cog in the wheel, really.
Good stuff. Now, before we get on to some of your other projects or things that you're involved in, you're also a doctor, a GP.
Yep.
I'm always fascinated into the journey of why people got into being a GP, and be interested to hear your journey and story around that.
Mine is actually quite different.
Okay.
So I actually wanted to be an actor to start with. I bet you weren't expecting that.
No.
Really.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually did some.
So who inspired you growing up? Which actor was it?
It wasn't a particular actor. It was actually drama in school. I just had so much fun, and through that, I was doing so well in it that they actually did some plays and stuff with theatre and stuff like that. I loved it. I had a really good time. So
hero or villain?
A bit of both. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was I spoke to my mum. And I got a surprising response. She said, look, if you want to do something like that, go for it, but just do something stable, have a stable career before you go into something like that. Because I've always loved the arts. I do spoken word poetry and stuff like that too, and I still write. And it's something, it's a good release for me, and to explore that creative kind of side. It's something I really enjoy. And she said, look, just do something stable, and then see how you go from there. And I come from quite a working class background, so I didn't really have people around me who were in education. I was the first guy in my whole family, extended family, to even go to like university, and 2 or 3 before me went to college. So
Okay.
there wasn't much guidance or support there, because my dad's was a taxi driver, and we had a grocery store, so the typical Asian jobs. And my mum did some teaching in English, and she was a housewife. So I didn't really have a structure, but I wanted to go into medicine. I don't know why. I just enjoyed the sciences. I thought, oh, let me just try medicine. I've always been over ambitious. So I kind of applied. I went to JC College, which we're around the corner from right now. And when I applied for medicine, I didn't really... When you apply for medicine, it's not just about having grades. You have to have all of these soft skills, you know, how to carry yourself, how to speak. You know, you have to have a good breadth of work experience, hobbies, interests, skills. You have to be a well-rounded person. And my skills were chilling on the corner with my mates and, you know,
Yeah.
hanging out. Nothing too interesting. And I didn't really know how to conduct an interview or carry myself and all of that stuff. So I didn't really get in. And then one of my friends, who was actually a refugee who'd come from Somalia, and he was applying as a mature student, and he'd been doing all this research about all the other things and support that you need. So he kind of helped me really with my application, and I did an access course to medicine at Bradford University called Clinical Sciences. And that year I was in Bradford, I kind of developed all those soft skills. I got involved in, like, you know, university societies, doing all these different extracurricular activities and social work and things like that. And I learned about public speaking skills and all the things that you need, you know.
Would you say you kind of grew up as a person?
Yeah. I would say I don't think I've still grown up as a person, to be honest with you. I think what I would say is I understood that people from backgrounds such as myself lack a lot of things which people from middle class and upper class backgrounds take as a given. The life experiences and the, you know, social skills that people might have, you know, are not reflective of intelligence or you know, the ability to do a certain role, but they are the things that open the doors of opportunity. And so it's like you're a step behind. And I realized that while I was in that year, and I worked to develop those things, and I got into Leeds University, so I did medicine there, and the rest is history, as you say.
So at the moment you just locum, you don't have your own practice or anything like that. Do you have ambitions to? I'm not, you know, so running a GP practice is running a business. And you would think that would interest me, given the fact that I'm involved in business, because I've also got some retail stores as well. Yeah.
So, but because when I do my job as a doctor, it's more the caring side and the passion for medicine that drives me when I'm at work, not my business mind or business acumen. And I feel like they're two worlds which I like to keep separate. So I feel like if I was running a practice, I would have to put my business hat on, and I wouldn't know where to draw the line. Because when I approach, because for example, when you're running a practice, you have to think about the cost of medicines. So then when you're prescribing, if you know the cost of medicines and considerations about referring a patient, you're doing maths in your head while you're looking after a patient. I don't want to do that. I want to have free reign as a locum, and, you know, spend someone else's money and do what I can for this patient. So I've not really gone down that road. And also, as you can see, because I do a lot of things, working as a locum gives me flexibility to so that's one of the answers about managing my time. Working as a locum GP gives me flexibility, so I can do other things.
That's fine. You touched on there, just you've got a retail, so you've got a publishing store as well.
No, the shops, like the
shops.
sweet shops I've got.
Okay, so what made you go into those business? You
know, Omar, the first time I actually set up a business, I was 14 years old.
Okay.
And my uncle used to have some stores in London, and he closed them down, and he put the candy floss machine in our garage. He just like stored some stuff in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So I just went in, you know, if you had a candy floss machine and you were 14 years old, you'd obviously want to know how to use it.
Yeah.
So I learned how to use the candy floss machine. I thought, I could make some money here. So what I did was I bought some of those freezer bags, started packing candy floss and going to the shops on Almack Road. And you know those little things that you hang socks on those kind of circular things that you hang socks on a clothing line.
Yes.
So I stuck a bunch of candy floss on those, and I be like, listen, I'll sell it to you for 30p. You can sell it on for 50p to your, you know, customers in the shops. Yeah. And I did that for a little bit, and a few of the shopkeepers were interested. A few of them were like, "What? Who's this 14-year-old boy, and why is he wandering around Almack Road selling candy floss?" So I've always had that kind of, you know,
you had that entrepreneurial mind.
I was
drive
like,
and
instead of just thinking, I could make candy floss, I was like, I could make some money out of this.
Yeah.
But I've never been money motivated. It's never like, it was more the excitement, you know, of setting something up and doing something.
Yeah.
That's what drives me, as opposed to, oh, I want to be rich or I want to make money. Because alhamdulillah, I earn comfortably as a doctor, so I don't need to do anything else. But it's just, I've always had that, and I think that just carried on with me throughout my life.
Okay. I want to move on, Usman. We met, and when we had discussions, it was about a platform which you're part of. It was a platform that was for Muslims, which, okay, that also caught my eye as well. Just before we go into that, so SMBF, Support Muslim Business Forum, is the platform. How did this platform come about, and how did your involvement come about?
Okay, so a few of the projects, well, most of the projects that I'm involved with, kind of came through someone I met while I was studying at Leeds University, who's my teacher and mentor. His name's Mufti Hassan Raza, and he opened my mind to a lot of the kind of possibilities and needs in our community and how they can be addressed, and directed me to do a lot of different things. And kind of he was the inspiration behind me, setting up Support Muslim Business Forum.
Okay. So the platform itself, from a business point of view, is for Muslim businesses.
That's right.
Why did you think that Muslim businesses need such a forum, need such a platform?
I think that if you look at the Muslim business community, which you do and you are part of, Omar, you'll see that individually we have so much potential, and we have some amazing people doing amazing things. But I think one thing we lack is that we're not organized. You know, when you say the Muslim business community, you don't think of a particular collective voice.
Okay.
And I think the idea was to bring that level of organization into that community.
So give me an example. What did you see from your experience from Muslim businesses? What made you see that you thought, okay, there's lack of organization?
So coming from the background that I come from, I saw a lot of people with a similar entrepreneurial spirit to mine, and I saw, because obviously I kind of experienced a dichotomy in the kinds of people that I was associating with and working with and around while I was at university. So middle class, successful professionals, and with their families as business people, things like that. And being a working class lad from Alam Rock, and the people I was hanging around with when I'm back home on the weekends. So I saw the difference in the opportunity that was available to a lot of people in Muslim communities, because they didn't have, for example, a lot of them don't understand the basics of how do you get investment for an idea, how do you assess the feasibility of your project, how do you market something effectively, who do you go to for HR, So there's the platform, like as individuals in the Muslim business community, the things that you need to grow were not as easily accessible to everyone. You're a networker, a lot of us are networkers, but not everyone is, and not everyone has that personality where they can go into those places and engage with those people, and some people just aren't aware, as much as you market things. So it was a case of providing that structure for people, that place they can go to. And we've seen that in SMBF, so many people have been able to access so many different things just by as a result of being a part of the platform. So the proof's in the pudding.
Okay. People might say, or people might question that, okay, by creating a platform just for Muslims, when we look in society, that people might criticize or question that Muslims they don't integrate, they're in their own bubble, sort of thing. This would be an example for those people to say, well, here's another platform, here's another bubble, sort of thing. What would you say to remedy that?
So I don't think SMBF is about isolating ourselves as a community or remaining in our own silo. It's quite the opposite. It's about engaging in an organized fashion. So, for example, if we take some of the community work that SMBF has done, it's been documented on even BBC Panorama. There's been a 1 hour special about race, and it's documented the work that SMBF's done. the mentoring, we've mentored 300-400 students from underprivileged background, Muslims and non-Muslims. We've trained over 200-300 people in certified life support training. We've supported people through our mental health seminars, working with third sector charities, palliative and end of life care, all these things. But the difference is, who did it come from? It didn't come from individuals. Look at the perspective of someone looking from the outside, that these are initiatives which are supporting social action in the UK for the whole of Great Britain from the Muslim business community. I think that's the thing. And I think if you see SMBF as where it is now as just an end goal, then you'd be forgiven for believing that we are in our own bubble. But if you see it as a stepwise process, step 1, let's get organized. Step 2, we can therefore engage more effectively in the wider community and make a positive contribution as a collective voice. Because you see some amazing stuff, from Muslim business people and Muslim figures in the Muslim community, but it's all as individuals, and there's more power in a collective voice. That's it, really.
Okay. Have you seen through your platform businesses get together and collaborate? Businesses use the platform or meet people and collaborate and go strength from there? Or have you seen people as, actually this is competition, or what are you doing here, or maybe a bit negative in the sense of, actually you're not competitors here? Yeah.
No, I think naturally any business will work according to developing and strengthening its aims and motives. So SMBF operates as a business network, and also we're looking to operate as a buying group, so almost like a 2-in-1, inshallah. And so obviously we will work to strengthen that, so you can't have a buying group in a buying group or a network in a network. So that's one element of things. But when it comes to anything outside of that, I can list examples all night about the way that people have collaborated, and it's an amazing, this is the whole point, The other day I went to a charity event, and as I was sat there, I was just thinking, and I realized that the venue for that charity event was recommended to the organizers through the SMBF platform. The sponsors for the charity event were recommended through the SMBF platform. The people who supported with the marketing were recommended through. So I was just sat there, and it was heartwarming, because I was just sat there. I was like, you know what?
My platform provided.
I didn't do anything. Yeah. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I went to the event, and I actually bumped into someone at the event who had come to our recent dinner, and I was like, oh, what are you doing here? And she goes, oh, I saw it on the SMBF group and I thought I'd come support. So that's amazing, That alone for me is enough to say, you know what, we've done our job.
Just thinking about Muslim businesses, from my experience, I sometimes think we think too small, and I think sometimes with our ambition, we I don't know, for whatever reason we're hesitant, and I think it's very easy to say we want to be big and we add inshallah at the end of it, but the action isn't there. And I don't know whether do you feel that's the same, that sometimes, like you say, we as Muslim business owners, we have a lot of potential, but whether I don't know, is it society, is it self-belief, is it the support network? Do you think that somehow we are stifled in a way to be bigger?
I think it's a case of, if you look at, like, I don't know if you know about anthropology. So anthropology is studying societies, but when you do that, you take your own lens and your perceptions of a society off, so you're looking like a bird's eye view. If you look at it from that point of view, at the Muslim community, we are actually in a very early stage in the UK, and it's a natural development, of how we came, and starting of corner shops, and all of that sort of stuff. We had a corner shop too, and so you're not gonna come in with a big vision. A few early adopters will, but as a community, if you look at the rate of our growth in this country, it's amazing. Look at Asda. it's literally £1 billion business, and it's now Muslim owned. And so for us to have in the history of this country, we haven't been here that long. The Muslims have been, and the contributions we've made positively to the economy of the UK and to society at large has been mind blowing. And I think if you're looking at so that's the front of the pack.
Yeah.
And you're saying, what about the back of the pack? I think it is there, and I think that is another reason for why it's important to have a structure and a network, because the issue, if I was to say in one word, is confidence. We have this kind of still like remnants of a post-colonial mindset, you know. We'll never be good enough, you know. We can't do what they can do, if you kind of have this other mentality. And I think there's
Why do you think that is, though? Or how do you think we can overcome that?
So the thing is, there's two ways that people are overcoming that, right? One way, which a lot of people approach, is actually let's assimilate. Assimilation is different to integration. So assimilate is let's become the other, right? And he's like, well, this will get us up because they're getting up, you know. There's a disproportionate representation of Muslims in, you know, senior positions, even though they've got the skills and the resources and, you know, the innovation. And I think you had Sophia Boot on, didn't you? And I'm gathering that you had a chat about that sort of stuff, because she's very knowledgeable about these kinds of things. And I think that's one element, you know. And then I think the other way is, if we are organized as a community, and that sense of confidence comes back in because we're taking pride in who we are and what we've achieved, then that is another way to overcome that psychological barrier, because it's a psychological barrier. Yes, there are practical and societal and economic disadvantages for the Muslim community, but they're not impossible to overcome. And you know, like you just said, it's about practical steps, isn't it? It's not just about ideology. And I think what we're doing is trying to make that practical difference, you know.
Okay. When you started this platform or launched this platform, are you at the stage where you thought it would be, or do you think it's accelerated, or you still think it's in the growth phase?
There was this thing that happened recently. There was a global pandemic. I don't know if you know about it, if you watched the news.
Well, given that you're a doctor, I'm obviously sure I'll take your word for it, but
if you didn't hear about it, there was this global pandemic. It was in the news and stuff. So anyway, obviously that was a big hindrance on our plans, but Allah knows best. We grew this and you know, growth is a learning process. You never have a straight line and think, okay, this is my vision and this is how I'm going to get there. The vision's never going to change for us, and it's never changed for us. The how I'm going to get there has changed 100 times over while we've been doing this, and I think it'll carry on changing. But I think if you look at the trajectory of our growth, we were at that stage where it's almost like you build relationships with people and then there's conversion, you know, like in sales. You have building of relationships, you know, getting your brand out there, if you want to call it that. And I think our focus has always been to first build that offline network before we focus on marketing and our online presence. And that's been intentional, because you have to have a real world community for something like this, for people to really understand, because it's something completely novel. And I think we were at that stage, then the pandemic came, and I think we focused in the pandemic, put all of our resources into helping people who needed it the most. So that's how I got involved in National Burial Council, working wherever we were needed. Our team, a lot of our team behind the scenes, we allocated ourselves to different charities and projects, but we didn't promote that. It was just about, look, let's make ourselves useful. We're not doing business networking events. Let's do something, you know, because this is an emergency time. And we did that, and then we came back, and alhamdulillah, we've quickly built it back up. And now it's about taking it to that next level, inshallah.
Okay. Yeah. Part of your building relationships with people. Now, I don't know about you, but in my experience, sometimes it's a bit of a sad reality, but I do hear Muslim businesses saying, we don't want to do business with other Muslims. Yeah. I don't want them as my customers, and I want to target, you know, the people from outside of our community. Yeah. So how does that make you feel when you hear people say that, and B, when they hear about your network and your platform, how can you change that mindset? And is there some truth in that stereotype of, because people saying that, there's obviously a bit of a stereotype to how Muslim businesses are when you're doing business B2B sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think you get that everywhere. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to talk about politics, but we can look at a few examples of some very big business contracts that have been, you know, backhanders through the government. Yeah. So are you going to say now, I don't want to work with major white corporations because they have corruption in them? No. And you're not going to generalize that corruption to every large white-owned corporation, because then you would have no one to work with. But when it comes to Muslim businesses, yes, there are people in the community who might do things the way they shouldn't be done, but there's other people who are doing some amazing stuff. And I think the benefit of the platform is it creates a sense of accountability. I do get that I get that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. I hear that a lot from people. Oh, you know, Muslim business is this, Muslim business is that. And I say, well, just come and have a look, you know. And some people said to me, there's no way you'll get, you know, 2 accountants or 2 solicitors doing the same thing, you know, in the same room. And we do. And it works because there's enough to go around. And I think as people come and get clientele and customers from our network, they start realizing that, you know what, I don't need to have my clothes out all the time, you know, there's enough to go around. And I think the second thing is there's a sense of accountability. Like if I've referred someone to someone in the network, that guy knows straight away, if there's a problem here, I'm going to get it from Usman. You know, he's going to ring me up and say, well, you know, you tried doing so and so over. So that brings a sense of accountability and a sense of reliability. And I think that existed when our community initially came over, but because we kind of disintegrated as a community, it's almost like we're trying to revive it, really.
Okay, fascinating. Guys, you're listening to the Business Hour with Rashid. I have Dr. Usman Khalid. He has many hats on, but we've been recently talking about his hat and president of SMBF. We're now going to just take a short break, and inshallah we'll continue the conversation then. Welcome back to the Business Hour. I'm your host, Rashid, and today I have with me Dr. Usman Khalid. The first part of the show, we've been talking about his journey into being a doctor, how he had an entrepreneurial mind, selling candy. I wish I'd known you at that time. You know, that's actually quite a fascinating picture to have seen you on Alam Rock Road selling the candy the way you were. We then spoke about how, you know, you set up, supported the setup of SMBF in Birmingham, how it's a platform for Muslim business owners, and how you've actually done work also for, you know, in the community, which involves a lot of non-Muslims, not just Muslims itself. Now, part of your platform, you run events. You have events. Have come to, you know, a few of your events, and one of the things that really struck out to me, one of the things that were an eye-opener, was part of the talk that you gave, part of the presentation that you gave, was you brought in the elements of business, how, you know, and the roots of it, and the philosophy and the etiquettes of it, going all the way back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. So I think as well, I found it really, really interesting when I first heard about it, and I think a lot of people obviously looked at this and thought, okay, yes, you know, this is how the foundations, you could say, came about, and I'd love you to kind of share a bit of that on the show now.
Yeah, of course. So the Prophet ﷺ himself, who is the founder of our religion, his first profession was trade. His first, you know, role was as a businessman. And we often have this misconception about the world and religion, you know, as two separate things. But even the Quran says, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا, don't leave your portion of this world. And the first 300 years of Islam spread was through business activities. It was through people who were involved in international trade, traveling and demonstrating the ethical principles by which Islam taught them to operate in what at the time was a kind of dog-eat-dog world, you know, and it brought discipline and order to that. And one of the key things which you've heard many times before was the Muwakhat Medina, the Brotherhood of Medina. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after being persecuted, migrated from Makkah to Medina, which at the time was known as Yathrib, the companions who migrated with him from the Quraysh, many of them were traders, and they were very successful businessmen and women. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam paired them up with the Ansar of Medina in something called Muwakhat Medina. Now the Ansar of Medina, there were two tribes, Aus and Khazraj, and they were farmers, but at the time the other tribes in Medina had capitalized the market, so they had the upper hand, and they were kind of setting very low prices for the Ansar stock and purchasing it, and you know, so it's kind of a form of financial abuse really to a particular community. There was a big element of that. And what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did was paired the traders with the farmers, and set up a separate Muslim market, which was the world's first tax-free zone. And he had female Muslim market inspectors, which ensured there was a high quality of stock. And that became like the economic basis, really, for the growth of, the Muslims in Medina and then beyond. So it was these ethical principles of business which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught his companions. For example, there's a hadith narrated from Umar bin Khattab where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "At-tajiru suduqul amin ma'a ash-shuhada yawm al-qiyamah," that the trustworthy, honest business person will be raised with the martyrs, because the trustworthy, honest business person is strengthening the economy and the image of the Muslims, through his character and his ethical dealings, and the martyr is protecting the borders of Islam. So both of them are doing something to benefit the cause of Islam. So it wasn't something seen as negative. And some of the key people around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were business people. Like Hazrat Abu Bakr had a huge textile factory, in a place called Souk, and Hazrat Umar Farooq had multiple commodities businesses dotted all the way between Hijaz and Najr. Hazrat Usman ibn Affan, everyone knows him as Usman Ghani, Usman the wealthy one, and he was an international textile dealer. Hazrat Abdul Rahman ibn Auf was a multi-millionaire or even billionaire by today's standards, and he dealt in food products. Hazrat Zubair was a successful garment trader. And then there were the female sahabas, which a lot of people don't think about, but the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hazrat Khadija, her business was larger than all of the Quraysh's business combined. And something I didn't know, I learned recently, that she actually had a minaret on her house, and she would be at the top of the minaret and she would watch the caravans coming and going, and she actually was the head of the committee which set the prices in Makkah. So she had that level of power in terms of as a businesswoman in Makkah. And then a few of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wives traded with leather locally and internationally, and there was a group of companions, women, by the names of Khawla, Lakhmiya, Thaqafiyya and Bint Makhrama, and they were directors of an oriental perfume company. So there's an image for you, that you wouldn't think about when you read about Islam. And Hazrat Asma bint Abu Bakr, who was the daughter of Hazrat Abu Bakr, owned a farm, and she was the main breadwinner in her house, and she would even feed the companions after Jummah with the produce from her farm. And then there was Hazrat Rufayda bin Sa'd, who was a professional medic, and then there was Ammara, who was a highly skilled warrior who protected the Prophet ﷺ. So these women had very important, very key positions in early Islam, even in the business community. So it's about reviving that. What we want to do is revive that sunnah, bringing quality people, men and women in the Muslim community together, so we can portray a positive image of Islam and engage with the wider community in a collective way as opposed to as individuals.
Masha, that's amazing, and I think, like you said, when I heard it, it was an eye-opener for me. I'm sure for a lot of other people listening today, it will probably be an eye-opener as well. It's interesting that you say, look, you want to revive it. How easy or how difficult is it for Muslims to practice these in this country? When you look at the competition that they have, when you look at some constraints that they might have to get loans or banks or these sort of things, how easy or difficult is it?
I think we are a very dynamic and innovative community, and I'm sure, I don't know if you already have had yet or are planning to have people working in Islamic finance on your show, but there's some people doing some amazing stuff, like even the UK government itself is advocating Islamic finance now, because money talks, and it's a better model than the interest model, that's a fact. And there's certain states in America that are implementing it as the main banking system, but renaming it because they don't want to attribute it to Islam. But that's where it's come from, and we should be proud of that as Muslims. That our economic system is the most efficient and effective economic system there is. So I think yes, it's difficult because it's not the dominant economic system in the UK, but I think there's some people doing amazing work to bring it to the forefront and offer those options. And unfortunately, for a lot of people from working class backgrounds, those options are not yet available, on a practical level, in terms of getting mortgages and these types of things. Some banks are working towards it, but it's more on the higher end of stuff. I don't know how much you're aware of it, but and I think it's just a matter of time.
You mentioned ethics.
Yeah.
What negative ethics do you see from the Muslim community from your experience?
Like I said, I haven't had most of my experience has been good. To be honest with you, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, it's been terrible. I've heard people have told me, and maybe it's because I run the network, people don't want to give me a bad experience because it'll impact their business. I don't know. That's a cynical view, but most of my experiences, alhamdulillah, have been good. And I think one thing which we're actually working on in SMBF is one of the key principles mentioned in the Quran when doing business and trade is writing things down, having contracts, being organized like that. And I think naturally, if you don't have contracts and do things by word of mouth, miscommunication occurs, and that can result in issues. And I think that's where a lot of problems might arise in certain instances, because because we're a tight-knit community, sometimes people think, we're a tight-knit community, let's just shake hands, gentleman's handshake, and let's crack on with things.
There's a lot of trust, isn't there? I think one of the positives within our community is, like you said, the trust element, the word of mouth.
Definitely.
If I've just said to you, look, this is it.
My word is my word.
That's it,
But the problem with that is, it's not a matter of distrust or people trying to do someone over. It's a matter of miscommunication. If me and you we trust each other and we shake hands and I say, look, I need this for my HR stuff, and I'll sort you out. We'll do something, and I think you've said something, and you think you've said something else, and then I think you've done me over, and you think I've done you over, and that's why writing things down is really important. And I think that's something that we need to get into the habit of.
And I think it's a mentality thing as well, because sometimes I would find people hesitant to ask, can I have this written down, because the fear of the other person saying, don't you trust me, do you know what I mean? And I think it's a mentality thing that we need to overcome as well.
100%. And I think by the time this is aired, our website should be live, inshallah. And what we've done is we put some free forms on there, and they are template contracts for basic financial transactions, investments, and interest-free loans. So what it does is, we're going to encourage people, look, if you're just even borrowing money off a mate, download it, fill it in. And and it's got all the Sharia terms on there. So automatically, the both of you have agreed to those terms. So you don't have to have the faff of doing the paperwork yourself. But let's just download let's make it a habit between our Muslim businesses and professionals as a community, that these are the principles by which, and you can use it even between non-Muslims. Say, look, here's the terms by which I want to have an agreement with you. So that's something that we've done, because you mentioned earlier, it's easy to discuss things on an ideological level, but it's important to have practical implementation, and that's one of the steps that we've taken.
Okay, I want to move on to women, sisters. Now, you mentioned, you listed, a few names of, sisters in Islamic history that were business owners, that ran business, very, very successful businesses. Bringing it to modern day, I know when I've gone out networking, I've seen quite a lot of women, sisters who are out there networking, either as employees, but the very senior positions, or starting off their own business as well. Just from your experience, is that something that you've also seen? And do you have many sisters part of your platform?
I would actually take that one step further and say that the majority of the key positions inside our team, as you know, are women. you know, and almost more of our dinners have been hosted by women than men. So alhamdulillah, we've got a really strong representation, strong female representation in our network, and I think it's really important because I don't know about you, but I've realized they're just better organized than us. We have all these big fancy ideas, and then they just make it happen.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do it without them, really.
There's that saying, isn't there, behind every successful man is a woman. So
I think in front.
Yeah.
So alhamdulillah, there's some amazing talent in our community, and if you look at the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was the first person that supported him? Even financially, his biggest support financially was through his wife Khadija radiallahu anha.
Yeah.
You know, so why do we have this concept that it's something, you know, bad? Because sometimes we have these cultural, you know, hang-ups that translate into the real world.
From your experience, our sisters, do they have that confidence to say, I am a business owner and I'm coming out to network, to promote my business, or do you still feel within the community and themselves that they're still being stifled? You know, what's your experience?
I think that a lot of the women who have come to our networking events have found it to be a breath of fresh air for that reason, because you know, you network generally, right? I don't.
Yeah.
You network you run your own networks too. And, you know, in a more secular environment, it's not a big problem for people to come out and network and do stuff. But a lot of, you know, more reserved Muslim women feel quite uncomfortable in those environments. And so we provide them that platform. So I think for them, it's almost a lifeline that, you know what, I can get my business out here in the real world and make deals and agreements in the real world in an environment where I'm comfortable. And I think the biggest thing in what I've just said is the word environment. You know, we strive to make it a comfortable environment for women, so they don't feel, you know, like people are behaving inappropriately towards them, or you know, or they don't feel like they're being forced to, you know, into situations that they're uncomfortable with. So everyone has their own comfort zones, and some women will just want to speak to other women who have come in the network. Some will be presenting, you know, and some will be speaking to men they've never met before to make deals with them. So it depends. Everyone has a different comfort level, and we want to cater for that.
It's interesting that you mentioned environment, and I know you've emphasised the keyword on environment. Your dinners, your platform, it allows free mixing. It is a free mixing, if that's the correct term to use, sort of thing.
It's not segregated.
Yeah,
it's not segregated.
How has that been received? Because, you know, is that sometimes still a barrier? Is there still hesitancy? You know, how has that been received?
So, like I said, there's a spectrum of behavior between men and women in the Muslim community, and our standards in SMBF are the Sharia, not, you know, what society behaves. If the Sharia, if you put the Sharia here, and you know, people feel like the way we operate should be more stringent than that, we won't accept it. If you put the Sharia here and people believe that the way we operate should be less stringent than that, we won't accept it. And if you look at the allowance in the Sharia for women to go out to do business, it's not, you know, women going out dating or mingling with men socially, you know. There were women who were inspectors of the marketplace in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you're inspecting someone's business, you're not going to have you know, zero conversations with them and look away from them while you know, stick your arm in the bale of hay to see if it's good quality, you know. So there was women who were working in the marketplace, and one of the ladies that I mentioned, Hazrat Rufayda, I think it was, who was a medic, people actually spoke about her because she was tending to the wounds of a man who was wounded in one of the battles, and she said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, look, people are saying, why are you treating this man? And he set up a tent for her in Masjid an-Nabawi, where she treated him in that tent, and he said, look, you look after her, whatever you need to do. So our focus is to provide an appropriate and comfortable environment where women are interacting with men for the purpose of business, and that is made clear, you know. And you can't police people, you know. You could create a segregated environment. If people are going to behave in a bad way, they'll behave in a bad way, and you can have a free mixed environment, and if they're not going to behave in a bad way, they won't. So our standard is the Sharia, and the Sharia allows in a public place for men and women to communicate, to do transactions. So that's
on a business level.
On a business level, and so that's what we provide.
Okay. Would your platform at your dinners allow non-Muslims to attend, or is it at the moment strictly for Muslim owners?
So
or Muslim
our
business professionals?
Yeah. So our platform is, the aim behind our platform, as I mentioned, is to strengthen and develop a collective voice for the Muslim community so that we can engage more effectively with the non-Muslim community. So it kind of defeats the purpose if the platform is a generic platform, because then how do you create a collective voice? But we're not going to turn someone away at the door. You know, if someone comes, they're welcome to come along, but this is not the kind of, you know, a purpose of why we're developing like a community which is historically disadvantaged in certain areas. We're trying to build a platform for them so they can have a positive collective voice when engaging with others. You know, it's not about saying, well, if you're part of SMBF and you're doing business with other Muslims, don't ever do business with a non-Muslim again. You know, that's ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
Even the Sahaba in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, even the Prophet ﷺ himself did business, you know, with everyone in all areas of society. It's just about saying, let's re-establish a positive organized identity for ourselves before we're engaging with others.
Okay. Part of this identity, what's next? What inshallah holds the future for SMBF in 2022?
So alhamdulillah, we've got some really exciting stuff planned. We'll be carrying on with our dinners on a regular basis across Birmingham, and we'll be holding regular kind of educational seminars in 3 different areas, which include like professional development, because we don't just have, I know we've mentioned business a lot today, but we don't just have business people. We have professionals who are part of our community who are looking to invest in businesses, or just looking to be a part of, you know, like-minded people. So professional development like public speaking, things like that. Then practical training and education workshops from an Islamic perspective, covering things like some stuff we've done before, like the comparisons between Islamic and conventional banking, understanding how to calculate Islamic inheritance, things like that. And then business development stuff, so, you know, workshops on how to, improve your marketing, improve,
sort of like specialist course,
specialist of finance, whatever, up to date, bring people up to date on those areas of business. So that's kind of our educational package. Then we've got the dinners for networking, and then we're developing. There's 5 key things that we'll be offering. So it'll be like members can log in. We're developing an online platform where members can log in and access 5 key different areas to support them. So one is like almost a business support package, like a one-stop shop. So whatever you need, we'll refer you to the appropriate person for that service.
Like a directory.
More like a support package, as opposed to we'll have a directory separate to that where any Muslim business can publish their business on and people can search and look it up. But this is more like a one-stop shop. So it's like, what do you need support in specifically? Fill in the inquiry form or contact our team, and then we'll make sure we connect you, and then we'll follow that up. Because we've got some more employees, so we have more admin power to kind of follow that up and make sure everyone's looked after, basically, if you're our member. Then we have like 50% discount on the dinners, and we'll be having free attendance to the seminars if you're a member. Then the investment stuff, which is some exciting stuff. We're working through the FCI side on that things, but essentially it's like a matchmaking service between investors and businesses. And not a marriage one. I don't know if you're thinking about a second marriage, but we can't do it.
Well, it's a business marriage, yeah?
Business marriage, yeah.
It's a business marriage, yeah.
It's a business marriage platform. And then we have also developed a Sharia financial advisory board. So that is something called Istiana board, which is a breadth of scholars from different kind of schools of thought who will be providing advice and support and fatwa if needed for people from But because you can get general, thoughts on is mortgage haram, is this or that, but some people want to know from a particular school, or they might have a very particular question. So we'll have an inquiry form that they can fill in and get that advice. And obviously, if you remember, that's something you get for free. So it's like getting legal advice, but from a Sharia perspective. So these are the kind of things which will be available. And then one of the other interesting things is this mutual discount service. So anyone who comes into the network as a member offers something to the other people in the network, like redeemable coupons almost. And they assign the value to that coupon and how many times it's used. And then, so for example, for me, it might even be something like, I'll give 30 minutes of mentoring for someone who's got a kid who wants to get into medical school, and I'll give 5 tokens on my platform. You might say, I want to give some HR stuff or something like that. And then that way, if everyone does that when they're joining as a member, it just exponentially increases the value of the entire network. So that's what we have planned, inshallah. Let's see how it goes. And, we're going to put it out there, and it might be torn to pieces, but then we'll go back to the drawing board. But this is our plan. Inshallah.
Finally, Usman, people listening, if they would like to get in touch with you, how can they do so? So
with me, I think the best way, and even the best way is not that good, is LinkedIn. I don't use any other social media platforms, but LinkedIn is just Usman Khalid. If you just look me up, you can find me on
Usman with a U or an O?
Usman Khalid.
Primary source, you'd probably say, for your LinkedIn.
I'd probably say, hit me up on my LinkedIn, and then I can, probably reply in about 2 months. Are you good on your LinkedIn? I'm really bad.
I have the moments.
You have those days really on it, and then you just I can't open this inbox.
But you know what? Just separately, it's an amazing platform.
It's
a really powerful networking sort of platform. Usman, 100%, really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your insights, sharing about the SMBF platform. May Allah give you the strength and the reward for everything that you're doing, and make your plans successful, and everyone who's part of that platform, may they also benefit from it as well. Really thank you for your time, guys. That's the end of today's show. You've been listening to the Business Hour with me, Umar Rashid. We've had Dr. Usman Khalid from SMBF on the show today. If you've just caught the back end of this and you want to listen to again, you can do so. The show will be repeated on Saturday at 5 o'clock. You can also listen on the Unity FM website. You can also visit my YouTube channel at Umar Rashid HR, and all this episode and all the previous episodes will also be uploaded on there as well. Please do connect with me on other social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Again, the handles for all of those is at Umar Rashid HR. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week, 6 o'clock on Tuesday. So please do tune in again. Assalamu alaikum.